I'm Alex, and these are 3 books that I think all writers should read at least once, and to be honest, should probably make a habit of coming back to. Perhaps the more fundamental question here is, why should a writer read? Surely time is better spent writing and practicing that art. It's a question of opportunity cost. Time spent reading is time spent not writing. So how should a writer, or an aspiring writer, divide their time? Ultimately, it's a question of output and input. To output, you're going to need to have some inputs first. We can't speak without first learning the words and the structure of the language, and writing is no different from that. To write, we must first have input, and this can come from a variety of places. The simple experiences that we have as we live, the hobbies that we do, and the media that we consume. But the majority, in my opinion, should come from reading, and reading widely at that. After all, if all that we read is Steinbeck, all that we're able to write is an imitation of Steinbeck, it will never be as good, and since it's all we've consumed, it's all that we can output. On that note, it's important to say that this is obviously not an exhaustive list, but I think it's a fairly good place to start. Up first, we have Ernest Hemingway's short stories, which suggest that less is more, and that the story should speak for itself. I know that Ernest Hemingway's writing style is not for everyone. It's minimalist writing pushed to its absolute extremes, with the most basic of prose. But because of that, the story has to be robust. Without language to dress it up and to mask it, it has nowhere to hide. If the story's not good, the book will fall flat. And Hemingway himself fell victim to this. Some of his stories can seem pointless, and this is coming from someone who's a big fan of Ernest Hemingway. But when it came off, it was masterful. Hemingway was a master of not dwelling on something. If something terrible happened in your story, if someone died, let it happen and move on. Don't labour the point. If anything, extending the event for pages and pages can detract from its impact. Powerful writing is concise, and Hemingway was all too cognizant of that fact. If you can master this style, you'll be able to deliver some truly devastating lines and tell stories that are raw and instantly relatable, as they don't try to deceive or augment. They just tell it exactly how it is. Next up is War and Peace, which will teach you how to tell a story, build characters, and immerse the reader. It's hard to tell what the main plotline of War and Peace is, outside of the overarching conflict of the era. In the same way, it's hard to identify who the main character really is. For most writers, this would mean a novel that is a convoluted mess, with no thread or overarching theme tying the novel together. Tolstoy, however, does this seamlessly, with no weak plot points, no underdeveloped characters, even though there are well over 100. It's a rare feat indeed. And all of this aside from his ability to write. It is said that if the world could write by itself, it would write like Tolstoy. And I've got to say, I'm yet to be convinced otherwise. Finally is Human All Too Human by Friedrich Nietzsche, which is everything else that is necessary to be a writer, beyond the skill of actually writing. Nietzsche was an incredible writer in his own right, with very hard-hitting prose, with an exaggerated style that seeks either delight or disdain. However, that is not why I would recommend Human All Too Human. There is a section in the book on what it takes to become a great writer, and more than that, how to become great at anything. The skills of writing are undoubtedly important, but there are skills which precede that, and without which any aspiring writer is surely to fail. Without discipline and hard work, it's impossible to become great at anything. Yes, we all have our dispositions and talents, but they can only get us so far, and too often they tragically fizzle out and are allowed to die. If a writer is not willing to make a daily practice of constructing story outlines, developing characters, practicing telling narratives, then they do not have what it takes to become a great writer. These are the meta skills that define success, and without them, the only hope is to wait for luck to come knocking. That's if it ever does. So there you have it. Those are my 3 perhaps unorthodox book recommendations for writers, but those 3 are all mastered in their own right, and will surely help anyone improve their writing. So those are my 3 recommendations. What do you think is essential reading for writers? Aside from that, I'll see you in the next one.